Well, look, I know in the SEC we've talked about that, how difficult it is to win on the road, but the Big 12, I mean, that conference is a gauntlet. Kansas plays maybe the best 20 minutes of basketball in the first half against Houston, and then they turn around and they blow an 11-point second-half lead on the road in Manhattan.
There is no difference between the SEC and the Big 12. Zero difference.
Well, outside of the fact that the Big 12 wins national championships, I mean, outside of that, yeah. I'll say this year. And I know you're playing up for our next guest.
No.
But I mean, the fact of the matter is the Big 12 is the best conference in basketball.
I don't need to play up with Steven. He likes me regardless of my flaws. But 9 bids from both the Big 12 and the SEC right now. It's equally
okay. When the SEC
tough.
can win some national championships,
Stephen Pearl is with us, the Auburn coach. Do you like Dunaway in spite of his flaws, Stephen?
Yeah, I love Dunaway in spite of his flaws. That's for sure.
He's such an ass kisser, though. He really is. I like that hoodie,
he plays to his audience.
Hey, that hoodie's sweet.
That's back-to-back weeks we've complimented Stephen's hoodie.
Yeah.
Speaking of ass kissing.
No, I mean, I don't kiss ass.
This one's from Home Field. I'm trying to get an NIL deal at some point. So this is from Home Field, and I wish they would sponsor me. But I think they're Indiana alumni, and since we kicked their ass by 28 points, they're probably not going to help me out anytime soon.
At least you hadn't done a deep dive knowing exactly everything about Home Field.
All right, so let's go back to halftime in Oxford.
Well, real quickly, I guess you're out on Blue Delta jeans now, too, after you kicked Ole Miss's ass this weekend.
Yeah, probably not going to work on that one either.
That's like a $400 pair of jeans. I think I'd be nervous to wear them. I spill too much stuff in my lap. Let's go back to halftime in Oxford. Jalen Williams said after the game, and then all of the other players are talking about it, that basically Chad Baker-Mazara said, everybody out of the locker room, this is players only. As a coach, when you see that happen, I mean, how does that affect you? I mean, like, what are you thinking? Like, well, I've actually got some adjustments to make. Did you want to see that happen? I mean, what was the reaction of the coaches?
Well, I mean, being perfectly honest, like most of the coaches were actually in the hallway. So BP had walked in to address the team initially, and that's when Chad had kicked out like the managers, BP, and the trainers. So he really kicked out the head coach, which is kind of a ballsy move. So we didn't really know about it. The assistant coaches didn't know about it till after the game. But, I think that just shows, I think how close this team is. And I think it also shows how much BP trusts the players to kind of run their locker room. Because at the end of the day, we can only do so many things. It's really their team, and it's really up to them if they want to win or lose games. So I think Chad's someone that everyone respects, and I think his voice is very well respected, and it's heard when he does speak up in the locker room. So, it was definitely something. That was obviously a positive, and it's something that they obviously held on to. But looking at that first half, I mean, people think that being down 9 at Ole Miss, a team that's undefeated at home, is like such a bad thing. Like they played great in the first half, and I thought we played pretty well too. It's just when you're playing a team that is a 29-point different type team at home, like you're going to get down. So I mean, people were panicking, and I saw all the tweets and all the messages, and everyone saying, "Oh, the same old Auburn on the road." No, it's just life on the road. You talked about it as we were opening up, like. Kansas goes to Kansas State, who's probably like in the 70s in Ken Palm or something, and they're blowing 11-point lead. It's just hard to win on the road, and you're going to get down on the road, and it's about being able to stay composed and not panic. And I thought our guys did a really good job of just kind of staying with the game plan. You can't really switch too many things up when they're just making contested shots, and we were getting good looks offensively. And we were making shots early, so we felt pretty confident that we'd be able to come out in the second half and continue to stick to what we would do and wear them out over a 40-minute game. And sure enough, they got tired in the second half. And then offensively, everything just kind of opened up, and everything got a lot easier as the game went on. So credit to our guys for staying composed, staying together. And Chad obviously had a big piece of that with what he said at halftime.
Hey, you guys have played some dominant basketball at times this year, but that final 20 minutes, I mean, going 22 of 30 from the field, outscoring them 56-33 on the road, is that the best half of basketball you guys have played this year?
Yeah, I mean, on the road, 56-33, I would say it's probably our best half of basketball. Making 12 threes on the road. I think our guys heard that you were questioning how many threes we were taking on the road. That kind of pissed them off. So they decided to just shove it in your face and go 12 for 27
as long
from
as
three.
you make
So,
some, you can't take too many.
yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, that we played really well and our guys executed. But I think part of it too is Ole Miss got tired in the second half, and I mean that environment. I mean that was an unbelievable environment. That's probably the toughest environment we've played in or we will play in all year. Like that place has Neville Arena vibes, but a little bigger. Honestly, it's probably 1,000 seats more, but that was an impressive environment, and for our guys to execute in the way they did says a lot about our composure and our guys just kind of staying locked in. And I mean that was probably our best half of basketball that we played this year.
Stephen Pearl is with us, Associate Head Coach Auburn Basketball on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Obviously, Janai Broome was unaware Morgan Freeman was sitting courtside initially. Had you seen him there? Did you realize – you may not even have seen the interaction initially, but did you realize it was Morgan Freeman that was grabbing his jersey, not just a random fan?
I didn't see it live like in the game, but we saw him as we walked out. I think Morgan Freeman's 0-3 when we played in that building. So I hope Morgan shows up every year for the Ole Miss game because he hasn't been great for him. But it was pretty funny seeing it after the game and seeing Janai's reaction to it. Obviously, he's a big fan, and the game was getting kind of chippy. So Janai kind of had his guard raised because Brakefield kind of headbutted Janai in the middle of the game. So, the fans were, I'm not going to lie, they were crazy before the game, some of the stuff that they were saying to our guys. So our guys were kind of on edge a little bit with that. So it didn't surprise me how Janai reacted, but it was really funny how he came back and apologized. And, Morgan Freeman seemed to be pretty cool about it. So unbelievable environment. And, they pulled out all the stops. They had Marshall Henderson come out in the pregame and lead their pregame cheer. And he texted me after the game, and it was funny. So they did, they did just about everything they possibly could to make that environment the way it was. And it felt even better to get the win when everything was going on.
So here comes Alabama, and I have a feeling even though you lost the game in Tuscaloosa, we talked to you after that game. It seemed like you were still proud of a lot of things you guys did in that game. In a rematch scenario, how much do game plans change, and having a look at the other opponent, does that help you as you game plan a second time around?
I mean, game plans change a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's about understanding their personnel, understanding some of the mistakes that we made in that game, and just the adjustments that we have to make. Understanding where their strong suits are and how to guard them. We obviously did a terrible job of crashing the defensive glass. They had 16 offensive rebounds, and a lot of those, happened late when they were able to get buckets late in the game off of offensive rebounds. And, we sent them to the line too much in the second half, and just too many breakdowns, too many turnovers in the first half. And, obviously it's playing on the road, it's difficult. We were down 14 in the first half, and our guys did a pretty good job of staying composed and, battling back into that game. And sure enough, we had a free throw to tie it with, 16 seconds left in the game. So, you got to make adjustments, but the fact that we're playing them so close to when we just recently played them, similar to Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, there's not a ton that changes between now and then. So, each team will make a few tweaks on each end. But at the end of the day, it's about sitting down, guarding your man one-on-one, and keep him off the offensive glass.
Do you expect to see Nick Pringle in this game? Obviously, he's one of those big bodies that they would throw at Janai Broome underneath. He's been suspended. Do you plan on seeing him? Does Diabate bring maybe something to the table that you didn't see in the earlier game?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect him to play. He's been out for a couple games, so we prepare as if he is going to play. Now, I think him playing. I think offensively they're better without him, honestly. But defensively, he brings a piece that some of those younger bigs aren't going to be able to bring in a physicality. But you looked at the first game. They played a couple of those guys. 13 minutes between the other two bigs. So without Pringle. Obviously Grant Nelson will play more 5, which makes them, better offensively. So we're going to prepare as if Pringle is going to play, but, got to be ready for if he's not as well.
few more moments with Auburn Associate Head Coach Stephen Pearl on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Obviously, it's an emotional game no matter where you play it, but in your arena, which is one of the most difficult places to play, that crowd will be juiced. Is there a concern among coaches about players getting too juiced? I mean, can that happen?
In rivalry games that happens. And if you looked at game one, there was a few chippy plays that happened. So I would imagine that our players will have that in the back of their minds. And, we'll obviously be ready to go out and do the talk with our playing. Rivalry games are way different. And it just, I hate to say it just means more, but it does mean more when you're playing, Alabama. So, you got to be able to try and control it in the game, but understand that kids are going to be kids. And, it's an added element to the game that, could be a positive and could be a negative. You just got to go out there and trust your guys to kind of do their jobs and handle their business.
Hey, back to Oxford. I asked you about the best half of basketball. What about Chad Baker's dunk a little under 2 minutes to go? To me, that's like maybe the most electrifying moment I have seen for you guys this year. Where does that one rank?
Yeah, that was a good one. Chad is he doesn't jump very high, but he's so long that we were worried that he was going to get hung on the rim. So when he made it, it was awesome. It was a cool moment. KD Johnson being KD, as the ball's bouncing on the ground, he screams at the ball. I don't know if you saw that on the replay, but that was really funny. And then a possession later, we're trying to run the clock out, and Trey goes to the basket, misses a layup, and KD comes in behind him and dunks it and hangs on the rim like a crazy person. And I'm like telling BP, I was like, you got to live with that technical foul, because they were just they're just juiced up and obviously excited to get the win. So that sequence was a lot of fun and really cool. And our guys, obviously, from all the hard work and time, they deserved that win. And it was just a nice way to kind of end it with an exclamation point, with those guys finishing off the game the way they did.
All right, it is Auburn playing host to Alabama, Neville Arena tomorrow night. Coach, thank you very much for the time. We'll see you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. War Eagle.
All right, enjoyed it. Coach Stephen Pearl with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. He is very kind to join us every Tuesday.